Hello, Luisa. It's great to see you here at the Pixels conference, ICT for Language Learning, again this year. So you've been coming, like me, for the past years. Luisa, would you like to say something about yourself to start with? You know, what you do and where you're based and stuff?
Okay. I'm a foreign language lecturer at the University of Pisa, Italy, and I've been teaching English as a foreign language for over 20 years now. I have just completed my doctoral studies at the University of Hull in the UK, and my field of research is participation in online language learning, and in particular in virtual worlds and virtual reality. At the University of Hull, I'm also involved in the day-to-day management of a European project called the Euroversity Network.
Okay, so you have got quite a lot of experience in virtual learning and virtual worlds, and
That's right.
And you used to teach in virtual worlds as well.
I have experience, of course, face-to-face teaching, and since 2007 I have been using the virtual platform of Second Life for the delivery of online language courses. My areas of expertise in terms of languages are the delivery of English language courses and Italian language courses.
Mm-hmm. And what would you consider as most beneficial for language learners to engage in learning in virtual worlds?
I think the greatest advantage of virtual worlds and virtual reality is the immersiveness of these environments. Students become so immersed in the environment that they forget that they're taking part in language learning, and some of the processes that they have to deal with in language learning tend to become sort of automatic. And the experience of virtual worlds also has a huge impact on the affective dimension of learning. It adds somehow to the experience of language learning. In addition, in virtual worlds, you can also carry out activities which, of course, you can't do in face-to-face learning. For example, playing hide and seek, or exploring new worlds, new places with fellow students from the course. So anything that involves action learning, movement, and dynamics is particularly enhanced by the use of virtual world platforms.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that students learn better in virtual worlds than in real-life classroom?
I don't think you can talk about better. I think what we need to start thinking about is when are virtual worlds suitable and what are they suitable for. And nowadays, with more and more options in online learning, I think teachers and students need to spend more time sort of considering what their specific needs are at a certain point in time. It might be that virtual worlds are not suitable for a certain type of activity, or they might enhance another type of activity. It depends a lot on the learning needs of both the institution, the person delivering the course, and the students.
Mm-hmm. And as a teacher, which advantages or pitfalls do you see when teaching in virtual worlds?
It depends, I guess, on the expectations of teaching and learning that one has. I know that lots of teachers find using virtual platforms as a context in which they tend to lose control of what is going on. It's very easy for student avatars to move off or disappear. So I guess if you're a teacher who prefers learning context, learning and teaching context where they can keep a closer control over their students, perhaps virtual worlds are not ideal for you. However, as a teacher, my personal preference is for chaos in a certain respect, so I'm quite comfortable with things happening that I haven't anticipated and for students to disappear and to come back again. Mm-hmm. I guess it depends how you also envision teaching and learning, and what your tolerance of control or lack of control is within that environment.
Well, you know where I come from, and that I'm quite hooked on machinima, making machinima in virtual worlds. I mean, how about you? Have you ever attempted to make machinima? And
I used machinima or recordings of virtual world activities mainly in my PhD. My PhD looks at a business English course run in the virtual world of Second Life. And all the lessons with students, all the lessons and interactions with myself as a teacher were recorded as part of my PhD project, and the recordings were used as data on which I based my research. So virtual worlds have proven to be, for me at least, a very useful tool in terms of data collection.
And have you used it as feedback as well, or do you think it's a good idea to use it?
I think it's definitely a good idea to use as feedback. It also helps if the teacher can then look back at the recordings, the teacher also to think about those areas which perhaps the students need to work on. So it can also serve as feedback both for the teachers and the learners. And definitely as a form of reflective practice, I would encourage the use of machinima.
And what do you think, what advantages do you see in creating machinima for language teaching?
As I said, reflective practice mainly, also as a way of sharing experience with other people who perhaps have never used virtual platforms for the first time, and a way of showing the public at large, what can take place. So I see machinima as a way of opening up the classroom and education to a broader audience.
Mm-hmm. And would you reckon that students in world accept machinima, I mean videos made in world more than students outside?
I don't know. I think again, firstly, I think ethically it is appropriate to discuss these issues with the students before recording. Secondly, we find some students identify to quite a great extent with their avatars. I think it would again depend on personal preferences. Some students might have a very strong tie to their avatar and feel very private about sharing their avatar and its image with other people. Other people might find it they're more comfortable with going public with their avatar rather than with their person as they are in face-to-face context. I think again it depends on the student.
Okay, I was actually more thinking of Readymade machinima, somebody else has produced, and whether you think people in world would work better with these videos or these film than people outside. I mean, in real life, when you have your ordinary real-life classroom and you provide a ready-made machinima about a grammar problem, do you think it works better in world or it works better in the real-life classroom? Do you think students would mind in real life to see a machinima compared with a video?
I think that one of the advantages of virtual worlds is they have a creative dimension that is lacking to a certain extent in face-to-face recordings. Some people talk about it as a playful dimension or the immersive dimension. I think perhaps to a certain extent the fact that virtual worlds can replicate and expand on our understanding of reality is a very powerful tool to have at our disposal. Okay.
Yeah, because I heard, and even at a conference last week, I saw that people, when they saw a machinima, they just had a very sour face and looked, they couldn't, they just didn't like it. And so do you think that makes a difference when people already are in virtual worlds?
I think there is a lot of emotional resistance to virtual worlds and virtual reality. I gather if you're already in the virtual world, it sort of means that to a certain extent you have overcome your prejudices about the medium.
Yeah.
Therefore, you would probably be more likely to accept a product from the virtual world compared to someone who has not yet had that experience. Again, one of the challenges of working with virtual worlds and virtual reality is to accompany people across the boundary between what is reality and what is not reality, and where reality starts and where it ends. And I think that's where the challenge is, helping people to understand that virtual worlds and virtual reality, they're not actually virtual, they are reality. And they extend and expand on what we know from face-to-face interactions.
Yeah. I mean, at this conference here, I mean, it's about ICT, and you think people are very open to, or should be open to things like virtual reality. But, I mean, even this morning I met a person, and she said, oh, Second Life, you're working with Second Life, is that still in? And you hear that all over the place. Now, for you having been, involved in Euroversity, the University Network, where we try to get people in, do you think there is a kind of break that we get less and less people interested, or is there a move?
I guess it's like any tool. It depends what you need the virtual world for, what you want to achieve, and who your teaching audience is. I think one of the problems is also the fact that virtual worlds are indeed extremely powerful as a form of communication, and that does create anxiety in a certain type of user. I also believe, however, that technological choices should also reflect the preferences of the user. All we can do, I gather, as a community of practitioners, is provide information and support for those people who are interested or who might be interested in using the virtual reality. I don't think that technology should ever be imposed upon anybody.
Yeah, I think these were your famous last words. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very
much.
Christel.